everyone, and welcome to Dualshockers on YouTube. My name is Ryan, and I'm the features editor. And Halloween is right around the corner, or by the time that you're listening to this, it will already be Halloween. So welcome to spooky season. So we are going to talk about our the scariest games that we played to celebrate the holiday. So with us are a bunch of spooky ghost companions with me. So first we have Logan.
Hi, how's it going?
We have Mario.
Hey, how's it going?
We have Mike.
Hello.
And we have Ricky.
What's up?
All right, so yeah, I think basically we're just going to talk about spooky games that we're all going that we all enjoy around this time, whether the games that we've played before or more recent games. So anyone want to start us off, I guess, with what their pick is for their spookiest game of all time that isn't Bugsnax?
I don't know.
I mean, that could be the spookiest game of all time, and we just don't know it yet.
I like there were all the rumors about that game actually being like a fucked up horror game, so I'm before it was
I mean, I guess I could start with like a childhood memory of like something being absolutely terrified by, and I brought this up before. I don't know where I brought it up before, but basically, I remember my first introduction to really horror games in general was on the PlayStation 1, and I remember not holding the controller because I couldn't handle it, but I was having my uncle play Resident Evil 2, and we got to the sequence where the liquor comes down, where you're just standing there and then blood just drips in front of you and you look up and it's just this weird like brain slimy like gecko looking thing, and then just comes and like almost pounces on you. Like that terrified the shit out of me as a kid. I just remember, and I remember being the first, I thought at the time, to coin the phrase liquor, but apparently that's a known thing. I must have read it in the manual, I'm not sure. But that was the first time that I've never a game like, what the living hell is this? Because before this, I was playing games like Super Mario Brothers and Kung Fu, and then all of a sudden, PlayStation comes out, and I'm like, what the hell is this?
Does the new one scare you to this day? Like the remake that came out last year? Like did the liquor parts in that scare you as much, or were you like, oh, I'm an old man now and this don't frighten me?
No, Resident Evil 2 and 3, for some reason, I don't think they scared me as much. I mean, Mr.X was terrifying when you first started introduced with him.
Yeah.
But ultimately, no, I think this time around, they weren't as spooky. Especially the liquor part is not as pronounced as it was in the original game. They kind of made it a little different. So when I was anticipating it and it ended up being a little different, I was like, it's okay. The game, though, that is still spooky, and I'm playing it now, is Resident Evil 7. That game so hard. When I think I'm safe, I am not safe.
Have you gotten past like the opening area with the dad?
I'm about to fight the dad. The last time I think I got Zoe and I got Mia, so I'm right there. Okay. I'm right there.
Okay. Yeah, that game goes really hard on train and scare the shit out of you, like right basically from the beginning.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was gonna say too. Is it feels like more recent horror games. Like when I think of recent horror games that have spooked me compared to ones that spooked me when I was a kid, like they used to be far more reliant on jump scares. I feel like everybody points to like the dogs and Resident Evil or whatever, jump through the window and freaking you out, or like. There wasn't like these characters like I forget his name. What is his name in Resident Evil 7? The dad's name. I can't remember.
Oh, I don't remember.
Whatever his name is. Like it's on the tip of my tongue. I should.
They call him Daddy throughout the whole game. It's really disturbing.
Yeah, whatever. Him, Mr.X. Like I feel like horror games now more go for like a sense of like constant dread.
Jack Baker.
Jack. Thank you. Yeah, I feel like they go for more of like a constant sense of dread that something is like around you and you can hear it and you know it's there, but you don't always know where. Yeah. Whereas a lot of the older games are more centered around like scripted moments that I think people have touchstones to. That's not only true with just Resident Evil, but I think a lot of horror games kind of in a general sense. Yeah, I mean, to jump in here. I mean, not to jump in. I've been talking for a second now, but yeah, the Resident Evil games are like, I mean, that's my favorite horror series ever. Yeah. I like it for a lot of reasons other than the fact that it's horror, because I really don't like horror games. And I know Ricky's kind of in that same camp where we're both kind of scaredy cats. Like anything that is like an actual horror experience, I kind of tap out of pretty quickly, like the Outlasts and stuff like that. I'm like, no, I've played an hour of this. I think I'm good actually. So like, yeah, I don't know. Like all my favorite horror games, I have to have some sort of sense of agency to fight back against whatever is scaring me in the moment, so that it makes me feel protected to a certain degree. So,
but yeah, Resident Evil 1 for me is like I still have nightmares about that first zombie you see, where it's like eating that guy and then he like turns and looks at you.
Oh yeah,
I was a cool kid and bought a GameCube, and when they came out as a launch console, and that was like the first game I was like, I'm an adult now. I'm gonna go rent this game from Blockbuster and play Resident Evil. And it was when my cousin was over and we were playing it, and we had a strategy guide because what we always did was one of us would play, and then when we read a strategy guide, we'd switch off. But after that scene with that zombie, I was like, you can play the rest. And I just would read the strategy guide and tell them what to do. Still to this day, like, I'll still wake up. And it's not even scary. Like, I've gone back and played it. It came out on PS4. And I played it again like 2 years ago. And it's not scary, but it's just something about that scene that's always stuck with me. And I think, Resident Evil is definitely my favorite horror series. Oh, excuse me. And I don't know if that's why, if like it's just because it's stuck with me so much. Because after I played that game and I was so scared, my mom wouldn't let me play the others for a long time, but she would let me buy the books. So I'm like this Resident Evil lore nerd who didn't play 2 or 3 until they came out, the remakes, because my mom wouldn't let me. I don't know.
I think it's like, I think to speak to the Resident Evil stuff, like specifically, I mean, it's hard not to have a conversation about horror games and not talk about that series, but like, I think the ones that are scariest are 1, 2, and 7. And when I think about why that's the case, it's because those are the most confined of all of them. Like, you are locked into singular locations. I mean, 2 takes you to some different places, but they're all pretty confined, all the same. Yeah. But you are locked into some pretty specific locations compared to all the others where you have some areas to run around. Like 4, it's like, okay, I'm running around a village. Yeah, there might be a guy chasing me with a chainsaw, but it's like I got some maneuver through buildings and stuff here. Like, 2 is all in police station. 1 is all in the Spencer Mansion. 7 is all in like a farmhouse area. Like, it is all like you feel like you are trapped in these areas and you can't get out of them. And that is kind of you feel like not claustrophobic in a sense, but you just get the sense that like you can't leave. And 7 does a great job of that early on too, because they're like, oh, here's the car, you can get out of here, and here's a police officer who's come to the house. Like, it's like they taunt you with these things of like getting out of here, and then you can't. So
no, to follow up with that, because I played 4, 5 before 7, 100%, because I think what it is, and I bring up to your point of it being confined, 4 and 5 is a lot of open area, open spaces, a lot of open air primarily, and I feel like there's less dread when it's with that. Obviously, you could still hear like certain noises that are not super cool when it happens at night, but yeah, I think you're absolutely right. When you're in these confined boxes, that's when you get the most fear, and I feel that a lot at the beginning of Resident Evil 7. Now I'm in more of an area where I guess it's a little bit more open, and I'm not feeling that dread as much now that I've gone through the front door of the Spencer Mansion. But then again, the game keeps leading me back into these boxes. And so I think that's why I think 7 is perfectly fine. I'm very curious how 8 will end up being, since it's literally called Village. So we'll see how that ends up being. But yeah.
Yeah, it's 8 they've shown off has got like the village aspects to it. I mean, that's the name of the game, like you said, but also they've like shown some stuff that's like some internal shots that looks very resemblant of the Spencer Mansion. So it's like, how is this going to work exactly? I'm very excited for that game. There's werewolves in it. So.
Yeah, I want in Ricky's point, I want to know the lore, why the hell there's werewolves and witches and all that.
Because there's witches.
Why are there witches?
Who cares?
Yeah, it's funny, like with Ricky bringing up, because that was like the exact same thing I was going to bring up, was just the whole like the zombie turning its head. That's like, I feel like that's like it scarred everyone, because I remember like the original Resident Evil, I used to watch a family friend play it, and like the whole time I'd watch him playing it, I was just like this and just had like my eyes covering my face because I couldn't handle it. And then when the remake came out, I was like, all right, I was like 11 or 12 at the time. I was like, okay, I'm ready for this game. I can play it. I rented that game from Blockbuster. I put it in my GameCube. I got to that first room where the first zombie turned his head around. I got so scared, I immediately shut the game off, and I just returned it the next day at Blockbuster because I just could not handle it because it was just too scary.
Sounds
legit. But yeah, I mean, it's funny because like Resident Evil is like, now is like one of my favorite horror series. And yeah, just funny thinking about that, how like I couldn't handle that back then. But I think for me, like I actually wouldn't mind when I was younger. House of the Dead, for some reason, I found extremely scary when I was younger. And it's funny when you look at that game now because it's just so cheesy and crappy. Like, but I don't know what it was, but I think like because I used to go like down the shore with my family during the summer. we would go to the arcades, and like they would have the big House of the Dead cabinets there, and like whenever we'd pass by them, I would always just be like this, like not looking at them, because the zombies and the monsters just look so terrifying, and they just, for some reason, I was like pretty young back then too, so I was just like terrified of them.
Yeah, screw the ones that have are like the little cabinets where you have to sit in and then it blows air in your faces.
Oh yeah.
Oh, like Jurassic Park was one of those.
Yes, that was fine. I'm okay with Jurassic Park. But yeah, when there was like curtains that block out the sunlight, no, like no. But yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But I think for other like scary games for me, like the main one that comes to mind for me is Dead Space, as far as like more recent games, because like I love the Dead Space series, and I just remember playing and I think like Logan said about like, even though like the setting is completely different, like you're in this space station and all that, like I think they did a really good job of making you feel like you're in sort of this like confined space, and like because you're in a spaceship that you can't really leave, like you just feel like you have no escape from anything that's happening. And I just remember like, especially the sound design in that game is just incredible, because I remember like when you'd be walking around, you'd hear things like clanging around in the vents, and I'd be like, there'd be rooms where nothing happens, but you think at any moment like something's gonna jump out at you, and just like, especially because of how like gory the like death scenes are in that game, like it's the one that always like sticks out to me.
There is one other game, and I'm curious if anyone else here has actually played it, but it was on the Dreamcast. And I remember distinct memories of it because I got to play it. This is one of the horror games I played as a kid. It was called Illbleed, and the game is basically you basically are a person that goes to a amusement park, and there's different levels or different rides, and as you're going through it, you have your health meter is actually your heart rate. And the more you progress to the level, the more you experience scary things, the higher your heart rate goes, and then you die and have a heart attack. But I just remember playing that game and like, oh my God, how is it monitoring my heart rate? This is crazy. And there's like puppets and like weird headless things that like run at you and hit you. And I just have these vague memories of just like, man, that was terrifying. These ideas that you have to go through these levels and survive. I'm sad that it looks like it's never made it anywhere else, or at least another version of it.
Well, I was just like, I think to me that kind of, I don't know if anyone else played any of Eternal Darkness at all, but like that kind of reminds me a lot of that, just like the ways that game would like kind of fuck with you and make you think that like, it would do the things like, make you believe that your memory card got deleted, or like your character's head would just explode out of nowhere, and just like crazy things like that.
That's awesome. Yeah, that was always one of those games I really wanted to try, but it was primarily on GameCube, right?
Yeah, it was only on GameCube. Yeah.
Oh, see, I missed out on the whole GameCube era.
Yeah.
How about Silent Hill? Has anyone here played any of the Silent Hill games? That was another game that I completely... I mean, I played the beginning, which is just man walking through town through fog and pterodactyls punch me. Like, that's all... Is it a pterodactyl? That's all I remember. Like, these like birds...
play this game now. It sounds like a video game.
They're like pterodactyls.
Is this Silent Hill or Dino Crisis?
I think I'm 100% certain it was Silent Hill, where obviously, it was like a big old foggy area. And I swear to God, the monsters that you see at the very beginning are just like pterodactyls. I don't know. Someone got to fact check me on that one.
I played it again like 2 years ago, and I don't remember pterodactyls.
What is the birdie things that fly down and hit you?
That might have been what was House of the Dead had that. They had like they were like big winged gargoyle things that would come down and like take people. Like,
that's funny. But no, I could have swore it was Silent Hill. But yeah, I just remember. Anybody else have history with Silent Hill?
Silent Hill is like the only one I've never. Yeah, PT is the only thing I've ever played of. And it's a bummer that game got canceled, because that was like the first time that I was actually like really interested. But I've never played any of the Silent Hill games.
Yeah. I can't remember if I played the second one or the first one, like 2 years ago, and it's scary, but it's like it's been so far surpassed by other stuff that I don't know. I always do like my friend comes over and we play a scary game on Halloween, and it didn't really hold our attention very well. I mean, we finished it, and I'm sure it was scary back in the day, but it's just kind of like, I don't know.
It's more of like psychological horror.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So like if the atmosphere of the game has not aged very well, then I can see how that would be the case.
Like we're usually playing like Outlast and seeing how far we can get without peeing our pants. So that one didn't really do the same thing that we were looking for.
No, for sure. Like right now, the game that's like spooky for me, or not really spooky, but the game that I get the most jolts out of is Dead by Daylight. I've been playing that almost exclusively this month with friends, And just having that there's certain killers that you can have like hear a heartbeat and you know they're getting closer and you got to run away. But then there's also those silent assholes that like come at you like not Jigsaw, but whatever the Jigsaw person is, the one that wears like the pig face. Like you can't hear them coming at all, and it's just terrifying when you get sliced. And Ghostface as well. Ghostface is also like that. But yeah, no, I mean there's a few games there where I'm just like, there's some games I wish I got into, but I was just too afraid. I think that's why I mostly avoided the genre.
I never avoided it, but kind of like Ricky and like Logan, I'll play them and I don't necessarily play through them, and I always have to take 30-minute breaks because I get so much anxiety when I play them.
Sure.
But I love them though, because I like this year I played Observer, and I thought that was really good. But it's definitely not scary or anything. But it's just got that like kind of creepy atmosphere that kind of keeps you like, you know, at the edge of your seat and stuff. I mean, kind of to just echo what you guys said. Like one of the first memories I have like ever getting scared by a video game was the dogs from Resident Evil, for sure. Like I remember like it did the first person camera and then they jump out the window thing, all that stuff. The first time I remember ever getting scared by a video game was Tomb Raider, and it was actually like just a dumb thing. It was more just I kind of doubling down on like that claustrophobic feeling. Like my uncle was playing it and he was just swimming through like a small cavern and he died, and I like got super scared by like this woman drowning in a cavern. So like that kind of stuff like really like scares me, and that I think that's why like stuff like Dark Souls kind of scares me, because it kind of feels like that. Like you don't want to go ahead because you know what's ahead, and like if I were in this in real life, I would never ever move forward. I just go and leave. Like I don't go through it.
You don't need to fight big Cthulhu monsters in Bloodborne. It's okay. You can go the other direction.
I'll just go back. It's fine. And I think that's why a lot of like the horror stuff, like I love horror movies, but like horror video games, I still love them and I love like what they do. But sometimes I just have to take breaks because it's actually me doing the action rather than like watching someone go through whatever thing. I guess in terms of like stuff that I played recently that well, actually, going back to like something that was a long time ago, another one that I got scared of was, we were talking about this before, was Clock Tower 2, which if you look at it now, not even scary at all. It's so dumb. But it was like my friend and I, we were probably like 9 or something like that, or 10. And it was just like one of the random games that they had. And he never played it. Like, I don't even know why they had the game. Probably like his older brother or something wanted it. But we decided to play that at like midnight or like 11 o'clock because we were having some sleepover or something. And I think now that I think about it, I think it takes like some inspiration from like The Grudge and stuff like that. And in there's like a little girl, like a ghost little girl, and she chases you around the house and stuff, and the controls are like god awful, like worse than like old Resident Evil tank controls. Awful. It's worse than that. So it's like you're trying to run away from this like killer girl in this like small house, and she just says like, I'm gonna kill you and stuff, and there's like a telephone that rings. You like answer the phone, says the same line word for word exactly how it was, so they just use the same soundbite over and over again. But it like that game like freaked me out, like it like ruined me for like a solid like 2 weeks, like having nightmares of that game, which sounds so dumb because like right before we did this I watched like the beginning portion of it because that's basically all I've played of it. I was like, this is the dumbest garbage I've ever seen in my entire life. But like, it also has like a good memory to it too.
Yeah.
I was gonna mention kind of similar to what Mike did. Is like, is there any games that scared you guys as kids that like shouldn't have scared you as kids? So, like I mentioned this the other day, I know in our chat, but like one game that scared me really badly when I was a kid for one reason or another was like Jet Force Gemini. It's really frightened me. I don't know why. Like some of the like, I think it was just the tone of that game being like, it's pretty like adventurous and fun, and there's little teddy bear things everywhere, but there's also like a tone of like dread and like, I don't know, like with the
Aren't they
evil
warring with bugs or something?
Yeah, like the evil ant army is like really oppressive, and they like, there's like in the first level of that game, like a spaceship crashes down on like one of the little teddy bear dudes and like blows him into smithereens, and that like freaked me out as a kid. That frightened me. I know if you ever got to the game over screen of Banjo-Kazooie and Tootie went in the machine, and Gruntilda came out as a hot chick, and Tootie would come out as the monster, going roar, roar. Whenever she came out as a monster, it always frightened me. There was like these things as like a 5 or 6 year old kid that just scared the crap out of me. That were not scary at all, but like I would like freak out and turn off the TV and run out of the room.
I used to play Mortal Kombat 3 with my dad, and he did a fatality to me once. You know, like the one where you like an uppercut and their head like flies off.
Yeah.
He did that one, and I like cried because I thought, one, I was like, that's very violent, and two, I was like, why did my father do this to me? And I like just bawled. So I think that like kind of scared me. Like it's something that like probably could. Also the Tomb Raider thing, but
it's good.
Yeah,
that's good. Yeah, I can't think of one honestly.
Yeah, I can't either.
A lot of it, like for me, is just like games that put me in like I said, like Dark Souls, for example. Although
sure.
you could
in panic
kind of
states.
like, I guess you could kind of, I don't know, argue that that's a horror game. I don't know, but
I mean, if it scares you, I guess it's a horror title.
Yeah.
Fanta was always one in Super Mario Brothers 2, like always coming after you.
Yeah.
Swirling disc was terrifying as a kid.
That's hilarious.
I wanted to throw this out there because like before we started this, I was like, I need to like look up some games and jog my memory that frightened me. And so I did a quick punch in on Google, like scary video games. The fifth result, according to Google, is the game Past Cure, which is not scary because it's scary. It's probably scary because the Metacritic score is so low on that. If no one knows what that game is, that is a game that I reviewed for us here at Dualshockers like 2 or 3 years ago. It's the lowest score I've ever given in my life. It's like a 2 out of 10. The game's really bad.
Jeez.
But I thought that was funny that even popped up before games like Dead Space.
Yeah. I thought that another game that kind of freaked me out, and it's gonna sound dumb, but like when that Slender Man game like first came out, I played that. Yeah. I played that, and I was playing it on my kitchen table like at daytime, and like my mom was like making like food or something like that, and I don't know, my like sister was like sitting next to me, and like I was like legitimately freaking out because like it would like just come up right in front of you, and you're like, it definitely like went for like the whole jump scare thing and like kind of the mysterious like, oh, you turn one way, it's gone, turn the other way, it's like right in front of you, and you're like, and then you don't want to move. Kind of like, I guess Minecraft too kind of was kind of like scary in that way with the whatever they were called, the Slenderman kind of
Slenderman.
Because if you just looked at them and then just walk back, they won't move, but they only move when you don't see, like when you don't look.
Yeah.
And that was kind of scary, like when you first meet them, because you have no idea what they are, especially when, I don't know, like it's like 2012 and no one really knows about that game yet. So
it's funny you say that because you just jogged my memory to one of the biggest jump scares I've ever had in a video game. And it's a little game called BioShock Infinite, where you are, if you're like near the end, you're trying to find Elizabeth, you're in this room and you press a button on a control panel, and then you turn around and there's that fucking guy with the head that looks like two horns. And he's not in the game at all except for that one moment. And I'm like,
they're in that area, but that's about it.
That's it. You don't see him, and I'm just like, what the fuck was that? And then you leave, and then that's it. But I'm just like, I remember like, what the fuck? Like, what? That scared the crap out of me. I do have some honorable mentions before we ever wrap up or anything. But basically, 3 games that also kind of freaked me out. Doom 3 terrified me only because and it's because you had to choose between flashlight and gun, which was annoying. A game called The Park that I played actually because I think it was free one of the times, but essentially you're just like a single mom that loses their kid at an amusement park, and you have to like go find them, and it's just like existential dread of like being a bad parent and growing up with like a terrible parents and like trying to find this kid. It was such
things that are horrifying.
Yeah,
as we get older.
While going on actual arcade, like actually like going on like the Tunnel of Love ride or on like a Ferris wheel, and I always say it's honorable mention because it's probably really cheap, and if you want a cheap thrill, just check it out. It's a little weird, but my main one is Until Dawn.
Yeah.
I really, really, really care about Until Dawn quite a bit, including the characters and the story that they were telling, and the way that they, not necessarily I should say trick me, but the way that they evolved the story as it went along. Showing you it's this one thing, but it ends up it's being about this, or it could be this. I thought that was a lot of fun. In terms of some of the jump scares, I mean, when you first see, spoilers for Until Dawn if you haven't played it yet, sorry, the Wendigos for the very first time, they look gross.
Yeah,
the way they move.
Yeah, like little not Gimlis. What am I trying to say? Golems,
like
little golems.
Little Gimlis.
Yeah, little Gimlis. Yeah, and then you
carrying around their axes trying to hack some people up.
And then when you see like your friends turn into one of them, it's just like, oh, it's terrifying.
Yeah, another thing about Until Dawn that I really like about it is, I know I've used Outlast a couple times as an example, but one of the problems I have with those type of games is that it's scary the first time, and then you're going to die and have to do that section over again. And it's just like, well, the worst that could happen to me is I die, which has already happened. So it's like it loses that ability to scare you as you keep playing it. Whereas Until Dawn, that never happens, which I think is, I mean, I'm sure it's happened in other games, but was a big like change for me of something I'd never seen before in a horror game that I really liked.
Yeah, it provided everything I needed, which was a spectacle along with interchangeability and really care if someone died and carrying them on to the end, because they could make it theoretically to the end.
Yeah, no, Until Dawn is definitely one that like sticks out for me because like I love that game, and as like a person that loves horror movies, I think having that sort of like interactive horror experience is a big like part of that game. I think the only two things that stick out for me, like probably one for me that I remember like when I is the Ravenholm section of Half-Life 2 is just like I remember playing through that game, and that is just like it's just because even though that game isn't necessarily a horror, like, it's not really a survival horror game, but like that section specifically just feels like so terrifying to play through as you're going around, especially because that's like one of the first sections when you run into the spider head crabs, which still terrify me.
Oh god. Yeah.
But that section is so good because conversely they give you, I mean, to not make it too spooky, they give you enough power. It's where you really feel like you know how to use the gravity gun. It's like, oh,
right, yeah, because you get the buzzsaw.
There's a buzzsaw here. What if I shot at the
and I remember playing Half-Life Alyx earlier this year, and the first time you run into the spider head crabs, I was just like, especially because it's in VR, I was like, oh no, I just had like PTSD again going through that game because those things terrified me in Half-Life 2. And then the other one, we brought up Outlast a couple times, and I just remember I previewed Outlast 2 like 3 or 4 years ago at PAX one of the years, and it wasn't so much like necessarily the demo, but the way they presented it. So on the PAX floor, they had the booth was like a big church, and the booths that you played it in were like confessional booths. So they were these really like cramped booths that you were playing the game, and everything was dark. And then they were recording us as we were playing, because I think they put together like a video of like people's reactions playing it. And I just remember playing this game with the headphones in the dark, and like you could hear people screaming in the other booths, and it just like it was just such a funny way to play that game when like you just have people around you that are screaming and horrified by it. It was so funny.
Yeah, that was like when we demoed Resident Evil 7 at PSX, I think 2016.
Oh, yeah.
And it was in VR, and it was kind of like the same thing. They put you in just like a small room with like a VR headset, like this creepy ass game. Like that was, I felt terrible at the end because I felt like I was gonna barf because of VR, but that was a pretty cool experience. But yeah, I'd like to kind of also kind of close it out with like 3 games that I really dug. 3 horror games that I dug. Like I said before, Observer I played like earlier, and while it's not like the scariest thing, I think it does the whole psychological horror thing like super well. And I think it's a really good story. And also has Rutger Hauer, which is sick.
R.I.P. baby.
Of Kingdom Hearts fame, of course.
Of course.
Zehan Nort fame.
Yeah. I really, really dig Alien Isolation as like a big Alien fan. I think they did like a really good job of like making the xenomorph like feel like how it would in like the film and stuff like that. And also just the look of the ship and like the look of your gadgets and stuff like is just really like it represents that first movie really well.
That's why it's so hard for me to play it. So scared.
Yeah. I think, well, the thing of it too is that it's really long. It's like a super
That's
long
what I'm
game.
also afraid of.
Yeah. And then even though it's not like super horror-y, I guess. I think Binding of Isaac's pretty rad.
Good game. Really good game.
But yeah, those are kind of like some of the cool Halloween-ish, like spooky games to play. I think are pretty great. Or Alan Wake, that kind of counts too, right?
Well,
That's kind of Alan Wake.
That game's rad. I just played that and beat that this year for the first time.
Yeah.
You're too entranced by Alan Wake's performance throughout the entire game, though, for it to be spooky, though, because he's such a good character. Like that game definitely has creepy elements, I think, but
it does, yeah, it doesn't overwhelm you. Like I think I tried playing Resident Evil 4, and I know the game's not scary, whatever. I got spooked by it because I feel like they just throw a bunch of enemies at you, and you can't move while you shoot.
Oh yeah,
and it makes me so angry.
I think the beginning of that game, the village section, is definitely pretty scary, and then after that, I think it does start to like I haven't played it in a while, but yeah, I definitely I think like once you start getting to the castle with the
once you start fighting lake monsters and giant ogres, it's like all right, this is kind of dumb.
But like it kind of has that feeling of like that first, to me, had like that feeling of that first section, because you just have like a bunch of those shades or whatever like just attacking you, which is it just gets more like you just get real like anxious and stuff when you play it, but it's not like super scary. But it's an awesome story. I really dug Alan Wake a lot. Like, a lot.
To throw out my last couple here, one of them is kind of in the vein of like you'd be like really, but Gone Home really frightened me when I played it, which is why I think I resonate with that game totally differently than other people do.
Oh my god, yeah.
Because like 95% of that game is like pretty frightening. And you get to the end and it's like, no, actually, it's just lesbians. it's like, oh, well, I was scared of nothing. But they're like, they definitely bait and switch you. I mean, spoilers for Gone Home or whatever. But yeah, like they definitely bait and switch you and make you think that game is going in like a ghosty, demon, spooky direction. And I remember playing that game totally alone in my house with no one else there. Either no one else was there or no one else was like up at the time. And I played it totally by myself with headphones on, like alone in my room in the dark, and it just like really scared the crap out of me.
Man, yeah, I remember
it
in that house.
And I know it's weird because you get to the end of that game and like people's perception of it changes so much of like, oh, this is actually such a sweet game, and then you can't really play it the same way the second time through, I don't think. But that first playthrough scared the heck out of me. That is probably one of the more frightening single horror experiences that I can remember.
Yeah, like I remember specifically there's the parts where like you go around and you see like the red splotches and you think it's blood, and then you go into the bathroom and you see it's like the bottle of hair dye that's like spilled.
Yes.
Like,
and there's like all the different I mean I read every single thing I came across in that game, which is obviously the best way to play it, and it's like all this, we get into this weird stuff about their like family history and like, oh, our uncle or whoever was doing this weird shady stuff and it was associated with
and you're like,
demons. Yeah, it's like and then you go up to the attic at the end of the game. It's like I don't really think I want to go up here. Actually,
no, because when you look at it, it's red and ominous and scary. And then if you remember, there's that hidden passageway by the door.
Yeah,
and then you go in. There's like a pentagram and like a Ouija board. Like what the fuck? And then you find out, it leads you to the attic.
Yeah. So that game was really frightening. And then I mean, we just mentioned it. We mentioned it already, but we mentioned it in such passing, but like PT is like the best horror game of the past 10 years probably, which is astonishing considering it's a demo for a game that never got actually made. Like it is unreal, the tension that there is with that game for it being confined to a single set of 2 hallways and a bathroom, and that's like it, a bathroom, 2 hallways and a little balcony area and then a door you keep going through, and it's like it's incredible, like what they are able to do with that game for it being so bare bones, but almost
it mix like a bunch of genres together, and it's like kind of incredible. It's like a mix of like psychological and like paranormal stuff. Like it's wild.
It's got a good mix of everything with the psychological stuff, like you're saying, because they start feeding you like these backstory details and stuff like that of like trying to piece together what is going on, and then it's got the stuff you were talking about before that's kind of spooky about Slenderman, where you know somebody's around you but you don't know where, and you're afraid to look in certain directions. It's a good mishmash of all types of horror that you see in the gaming space a lot, and it pulls it off excellently, and I would be incredibly interested to see what the full game looks like. Luckily, Kojima says he's gonna still make a horror game someday, so I'm curious to see what that looks like.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That'd be really good. I mean, he's made like the best horror game of the past 10 or 15 years, and it is if you know what you're doing, it's like an hour-long demo, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. So
I think the one thing that I think we like missed and we didn't really touch on at all, and I think is like a big reason why horror games are the way that they're made now, is Amnesia. Because I think that game also is like pretty freaky too, and especially like at its time. I think maybe now if you played it, it wouldn't be nearly as.
Oh, that water section is still pretty terrifying.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm the one person in the world that's like, that game didn't do anything for me. I tried.
But it was like it was also like with the mechanics of the game too, like kind of helped with that. Like, you know, you can't be in the dark for too long or else you go crazy. And
I think actually it legit was making me in real IRL like sick playing the game, and I was like, I just don't want to play anymore. Like for some reason the camera movement, the way it bobbed, I don't know, for some reason it actually got me legit sick.
I do think though that it should get mentioned just because.
No, I agree with you.
I don't think the horror genre like for video games would be where it's at now without that game.
Sure.
Personally.
Yeah. Awesome. I think we'll wrap up here. But anyone else have any other things they want to mention or shout out before we wrap up? Or
you all should try the Faith trilogy by Erdorf. It's a trip.
Shout out to Michael Myers. Happy birthday.
Judgment. Dualshockers Game of the Year 2019 is kind of a horror game. It has to do with serial killers. Pretty wild.
That one part.
Played that game.
All Yakuza games are a mishmash of all
I was
genres.
gonna say, there's that one. Spoilers for Yakuza 1. There's that one mission where Majima is a zombie, and then there's a bunch of zombies, and you have to run away from them. And then
isn't there a mission? I don't know if it's in Judgment or one of the Yakuzas where they think that there is a ghost in their apartment. Like, so it's in 2.
Freaking me before you even said anything.
Okay, yeah, where they think there's.
I think there is one like that in Judgment too, though. I totally remember.
I think there is one in Judgment like that.
Yeah, so in Judgment, it's a lady is trying to trick a guy and pretends to be a ghost.
Yeah, to like move out of the apartment or something like that.
Yeah.
And in 2, there's like a legitimate ghost. It's like hiding behind you.
Ooh, spooky.
It's very spooky.
All right.
Awesome.
Yakuza games are good. So
I think we will leave it there with spooky ghosts and Yakuza. So thanks everyone for watching. And as far as horror game and Halloween stuff, I know we have a review of Amnesia Rebirth that just came out recently. We have a review coming for Little Hope, the new Dark Pictures game. And we have some other Halloween stuff coming up soon. I know we did the Among Us Let's Play. We have some other fun Halloween stuff coming up. So hope everyone has a happy Halloween. Thanks for watching. And until next time, we'll see you guys later.
Bye.